Welcome back, folks, to part 3 of our awesome series with Pro D.P, Jon Schweigart, right out of LA. This is my favorite episode of the entire series because on this one, Jon shows us tips and tricks that he uses lighting the music video that he shot out in Nevada under the hot beating sun, day exteriors on 16mm film, and shows us how he exposed for that using his LiteMaster. And then he has exclusive raw footage on both of the feature films that he shot, one out in Alabama and one in New York. So lots of exciting stuff here, so let's get right into it. Okay, cool. So now this is the music video you shot on 16mm, right?
Right. So this is an example of using the sun front on.
Okay.
Like I said before, in my experience, it works best when you can kind of pose your model in a specific way that you want. So she's looking up towards it. If you look at the shadow underneath the nose, it's kind of like flattering. You call that butterfly lighting.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's not like detached over to the side. It just works with this image because of her posing. Mm-hmm. So that's one example when you can use it, but I think you kind of have to angle the direction that they're looking sometimes. Like I wouldn't have her looking down in the left corner at something, because then it would be hitting her on the top of the forehead. She'd have shadows underneath her eyes. Say if she had her sunglasses off, it wouldn't be very flattering. But here's a case where I think it works.
Yeah, for sure. There were no modifiers in that shot?
No, that was just natural.
Gotcha.
This one, Justin, sun is right behind her. This was stopped down for a more stylized look. She was kind of like wavering in front of the sun to give like lens flares and peeking through. Uh-huh. So this is almost an impossible exposure range to balance here, because we got detail in the sky but none on her. Uh-huh. And obviously the flare is kind of like carrying through with the color on her shirt and her hand and all that. The orange flare is just washing over everything. But if you look, here's a little later in the day. We had fireworks going. There's, the sun has almost set. We're getting detail in the sky and detail on her now because we're not flaring it out. There's really no modifiers here. Yeah. There's no bounce even.
Look at this. This is great. The sun's directly behind her head, yeah?
Yeah, so she's got like a little halo around her. But yeah, this is a matter of using the LiteMaster to really dial it in. Like normally when you're shooting outside, you can just let the sun kind of hit the dome on the meter. Uh-huh. And that's going to give you an 18% gray reading. If you want it to feel like the sun is actually hitting the face, you probably don't want that to be 18% gray. So you might open up a little bit to make the skin feel a little bit more overexposed, so it actually feels like the sun is hitting. Because if you stop down to the 18% gray, it's going to be properly exposed but not feel quite right.
Okay.
In this case, what I did was I pointed the dome at the sky, got the reading. It was probably something like an 8, because we're shooting on, I think, 250D here. So then when I pointed the dome to what the face was getting on it, it was like a 2.8. So I'm like, I got to meet somewhere in the middle. So I probably picked around a 5.6, and I'm like, now I also want to overexpose the negative a little bit. So I probably opened up to about a 4.56 split. And that's how I decided on my f-stop there.
Gotcha.
A little bit tricky. Took me a lot of practice to be able to get a backlit sky and talent both exposed, but it's all about the transfer in the lab too. These guys at Spectra really did a really good job. So if you look here, the sky's bright because we opened up a little bit. The but it feels natural. It feels like how I guess my eye would see it. Could have used, some bounce and everything, but shooting a naturalistic video on the fly, we just kind of went with it.
Yeah, the final product turned out wonderful.
Thank you. So this would be pretty standard exposing right on the money for 16 millimeter.
Okay.
I pretty much got the light reading from what the sun was telling me. I pretty much just exposed it right there. I probably did a little spot metering on her shirt to see what that was saying. This is pretty much exposing like right on the money from what the meter was saying. So the sun's kind of, coming from the back top right. I like to retract the dome to get a more selective view, because if you're here, you're getting, ambience from every direction.
So you like to take the reading with it inside of it there?
Yeah, for when I'm shooting in this kind of condition.
What do you mean? Super bright? Super hot?
With film, you could leave the dome out. You're gonna get a good image, but to play it safe, I like to retract it and be more selective when I'm dealing with like where I want my sun,
Gotcha.
To be exposed. So
Okay.
I'll retract it. Some people even cup it to make sure that nothing else. I'm just getting what the sun is giving me here, even though the sun is brighter than the ambient, so it doesn't really matter. But like if you had like the sun over here and you're trying to get the fill side, it's probably going to hit your dome. So I retract it for just to be safe sometimes. You take your reading, and with a shot like this, you can pretty much expose right on the money because you're not dealing with a hot background. She's the one that's lit in this case. So you get your reading, which is a 2/8 4 split. Just crank it open a third of a stop, just to get the negative to be a little bit more exposed, less grain in the shadows, and I would probably just shoot this at a 2/8.
Where is your sun in this shot? Just curious.
And when I say I'll shoot it at 2/8, I was just getting a reading from this light over here, but
Gotcha.
pretending that was my reading.
Right.
Sun is like 3 o'clock.
So like
top
over here.
Top right of the frame.
Okay. Oh, okay.
It's coming down.
Okay.
She's turned away from it, which works, but you can see a little bit on her nose. It's it's still kind of toppy.
Yeah. Okay.
Your shirt's just under being clipped, which is probably just, the latitude of the film stock.
Right.
Honestly.
Cool. Okay, so what are we delving into right here?
This is a feature I shot in Alabama called Army of One.
Okay.
I think, we're just setting up a dolly zoom or Zolly shot here. She's kind of out of her light right now, but this is pretty straightforward. We had her backlit.
Okay.
And that was just from scouting. Early in the day, director's like, where do you want to shoot it? And I walked around a little bit, looked every direction. I'm like, let's shoot this way because, I like to, have, all these shadows coming through. There's more contrast, and backlight her hair and do the, standard side bounce here for a little bit more dramatic look. So that reflector was like 90 degrees to her right.
Okay.
You can see on her cheek is even dark on the left side.
Okay. Cool.
And we just did a couple takes of that. So this is kind of where, first thing that you do when you arrive is you take a look around. You scout where the sun's at, what's going to work for you. I could have had the sun hitting her from the side, but I wanted it to be a little bit more controlled. Because in this case, all I had to do was set up the dolly and the reflector coming on the right side. It was a 4x beadboard.
Gotcha. And it's like almost the same thing again. We're almost kind of doing that sun wrap kind of thing.
Exactly. Yep.
Cool.
Single source kind of lighting feel.
Awesome.
She looks right at the beadboard there, which I'm a fan of. Have the actor look towards their light source.
Mm-hmm. Cool.
Same film here. We were doing a shot where they are running, through the woods and it starts to rain. So we got lucky because it got overcast here. So kind of looks like it could start raining, and then they run into our rain machine.
Ah, you had a rain machine.
It was basically a hose on a combo stand.
Okay.
But since it was only shown for a short period of time,
awesome.
It worked. But we made it as big as we could.
How did you get it falling off the house like that?
That is just running down the roof.
Interesting.
Okay.
Okay.
And the sun came out here, so not ideal, but we just had to keep going with it.
Okay.
In some of the stills, you'll see how we kind of lit this. We had the sun on the right side coming onto the porch, but we wanted to kill it because it's a rain scene. So we ended up killing it, you know, actually hitting the porch area where they're standing. So we cut the sun with a 12 by quarter grid.
Okay.
So you're getting the directionality of the sun still, but it's not a hard light hitting them anymore.
Where is the 12 by on?
It's frame right.
Okay. Way out.
It's probably behind them a little bit.
Okay.
3/4 backish to them, and yeah, I think that was the only lighting on that shot. So yeah, the 12 by quarter grid was kind of back to the right where the sun was coming through, and I think we had a M18 as well coming in from the left side of camera.
Okay. Okay, so is this the same day of where the Zolly shot was, or is this a different day?
No, this is probably a week after we started.
Okay.
That Zolly shot was the second shot of the whole production.
Gotcha.
You know, like our first shot up was that
Okay.
JL Fisher dolly out in the woods, you know, laying track.
Now what are we doing here?
I'm showing something that was kind of a happy accident. I had requested for like a half soft frost on a 4x frame to be flown in. But since we're shooting in the woods, we had to get the golf cart to bring down the stand and, you know, run to the grip truck quickly. It just wasn't on standby. So I framed it up and I'm blocking it with the actors, and I'm like, you know, this is a case where natural lighting works for you. So that is the sun coming through the branches, and I'm like, it kind of works for the scene because they're like they're running from somebody in the scene. I'm not going to give away the story, but
Sure.
They have been found, and it just looked like cornered prey here.
Yeah. Great.
So
With the
I'm
lighting,
like,
right?
I'm like, yeah, kind of
Yeah.
fit the mood for me. So I'm like, 86 that. Let's just roll with it.
Let's roll with this is all natural.
That's all natural right there.
Okay, interesting. Now, is this towards the end of the day when it's, because it looks like, or is it just
Yeah,
the way the
it's a
sun's-
lower sun. It's probably 5 p.m.
Okay. But in Alabama.
Yeah.
So 5 p.m. Alabama sun.
in October.
In October. Interesting. Okay, cool. Yeah, great, dude.
All right, this is from a feature called Donna. We shot in Long Island.
Nice.
It's a period movie. This is like the 1970s here.
Okay.
Simple scene, 2 actors getting in a car. French over the shoulder shots here.
You call it French.
French overs, yeah. That means that we're doing over the shoulders from behind their back.
Ah, okay. Interesting.
What we did to combat the sun here was shooting French overs. We picked that because we could shoot from the shadow side because the sun was at like a 2 o'clock. It was like 10 in the morning here, but it's at like the top right of the frame here. We were using like 250, I think, on a 4x frame, but we had 2 of those going. One was over the left side, one was over the right side on each actor. You can see here when he backs up, he kind of backs up out of it, but just enough for the editor to make the cut. Right there, he starts to back
gotcha.
out of it.
Gotcha. Okay.
But
yeah.
it was just enough for the editor to use, so it worked perfectly in the edit.
And then this is her turnaround.
Yeah. So here's the reverse coverage on her, and we just pushed that negative as far up as we could, just to give a little bit more shadow side. And acting as the sun, I think the 4x frames were a good call, because if we use like an 8x overhead, it might have been too much wrap, on their faces and not quite looked like a sunny day.
Gotcha.
But using 250 on the 4x frames, it was a little bit smaller than the 8x would have been. So there's a little bit more directionality, a little bit more hard than an 8x would have been. So I think it was a good call.
All right, folks, there you have it. I hope you are enjoying this little underdog masterclass as much as I am. Big shout out to Jon for spending so much time with me and giving us access to this stuff. And big shout out as well to the production companies, directors, artists with these music videos and feature films. This is just amazing. Make sure you hit that subscribe button if you're new here. Tap the bell so you'll be notified as soon as episode 4 drops. That'll be in the next couple of days, and that will be our final chapter. Jon shows us tips and tricks that he uses for lighting nighttime exteriors on the feature films. And he's got a couple of cool lighting gags for the moon and bonfires, so you're not going to want to miss out on that. And yeah, as always, thanks for watching. And for now, that's a wrap.